In this video, let's look into the roles and responsibilities in a strategy consultancy. So first we will look at a career ladder and we will see for each of the grades what people bring in and what they get out. Second, we will look at two specific examples, a 1+2 and a 1+3 staffing, so a small and a standard project setup. And third, as this video is part of a playlist on a project case study, we will look at a specific project example and I will explain to you who's going to handle which tasks. So here we got a consulting career ladder. It starts with the junior consultant role that you usually take on when you finish your master's degree. Then we have the consultant role, the senior consultant role, and eventually the project lead role. So let's look into the roles and responsibilities for each of these grades. First, we have the junior consultant, which I titled The Apprentice. So here the idea is that you are really getting a proficient training in PowerPoint, Excel, and the overall modus operandi of consulting. And in return, you support a team on more operational tasks. And this is really a good deal for the first year, after which you will progress to the consultant role. So for the consultant role, the idea is to be de-independent, as I call it here. So you need to perform complex tasks on your own, but you will also take on first leadership responsibilities. So usually you start out with interns and then towards the end of the consulting grade, you progress towards training junior consultants. Now, after 1.5 years in the consultant role, you typically transition to the senior consultant role, and here tasks really change because it's no longer that much about doing operational work and analysis anymore. It's becoming more about organizing project work. That's really the key difference here. So you are kind of an emerging project lead now. And again, here we have two cohorts in between, SC1 and SC2. The idea is that the SC1 is the workstream lead who's training a junior consultant, and the SC2 is already a project lead for small projects, 1+2 staffings, as we'll just see in a second. So typically this role lasts around 2.5 years, which is rather long because senior consultant 1 and senior consultant 2 are really two different things. And then after 2.5 years, you usually become a project lead. And here again, we have a PM1 and a PM2 role. The difference again is that the PM1 role is targeted towards leading a standard project in a 1+3 staffing, as we'll see in a second as well. And the PM2 role is for more advanced project leads who typically run two projects at the same time if they're from the same industry or function, or who run more complex, more critical projects as a project lead. Before we move on, I should mention that this is really firm specific. So there are consultancies who, for example, do not have a senior consultant grade. They only have business analysts and consultants below project lead. But overall, the idea is always to become a project lead after 5 years. After the manager role, it's typically another 5 years towards the partner role. And here in between, you sometimes have a senior manager role. You usually have a junior partner or principal role, and then eventually the partner role. And then typically there's also senior partners and global MDs. So it's not quite the end when you reach the partner role. What happens there? So typically principals also lead projects, usually more complex or demanding projects, a bit like PM2. So it's really getting a bit blurred there. It's not that clear cut anymore what they do or don't do. They're usually in charge of projects as well. And then the partners, they for the most part only book 1 day on a project each week, which means that they are more in a supervising role. They take part in key meetings, they review key deliverables, they oversee the development of the PM. So it's more like these meta tasks, and we will also have a deeper look into that later in this video. So here we have an example of a small project staffing, which is led by an SC2 who is supported by a junior consultant and a C1. So here we have 2 work streams typically, and that's how it's working. For a standard project, which is then a 1+3 staffing, it's usually a PM1 who leads the project. And there again, 2 work streams. One is led by an SC1 who is supported by a junior consultant who is in return getting training from the SC1. And then we have a consultant 2 who is working quite independently. So as you can see here, the C2 role is no longer managed by a senior consultant in between, but is directly managed by the PM, which allows for a steeper learning curve. So here we got the approach slide from the project case study from this playlist. If you don't know this, make sure to check out my other video where I introduced the case. Here, there's really a lot to do, so everyone will be fully occupied, let's say. Let me quickly jump to the next slide, in which we will see who is on the project. So we are going to have one junior consultant, one senior consultant, or PM1 who's going to lead the project. And we will also have the partners who will oversee the project on a more general level. So let's see who's going to do what in this project. This is actually a project case study that's coming from a playlist here on my YouTube channel. So make sure to check out the introduction if you do not know this, especially this approach slide. I will really explain everything in depth there. We have 3 phases, as this is a restructuring project. First, we'll do kind of an as-is analysis, status quo modeling. Second, we will ideate measures for turning around the business. And third, we will quantify all this and make it trackable. That's the idea here. So overall, this allows us to make an informed decision on the company's future that needs to be turned around and manage stakeholder expectations, like for example, from the financing banks. So here, as you can see in phase 1, the first work package is planning short-term liquidity. This is something that's not that complex, so I'm going to give this to the junior consultant as a lead. This is also important because they need to grow, so just do that, allocate responsibility early on. Second, we have building an integrated financial model. This is something for the consultant, and the reason for that is this is a complex individual task, and this is something the consultant can perform independently, really be in charge of this, aggregate all the information in this model, as this is really a centerpiece of this type of project. Third, we have modeling the market, and here actually I'm going to give this to the senior consultant, who's also going to be in charge of leading this project. And the reason for that is the impact of modeling the market is extremely high in a restructuring project. And the reason for that is the market model directly informs the top line, so the sales numbers of the company. And the sales numbers typically drive material expenses, they drive personnel expenses, they drive working capital. It's just having such a huge influence on the entire model, on the entire case, that this really needs to be bulletproof. So the senior consultant is going to be in charge of that, and the junior consultant is going to support the senior consultant in this task. The second phase is all about ideating and prioritizing measures to turn around a business. And here the senior consultant is going to be in charge of the overall phase, but the consultant really is going to take on a lot of responsibility as well here. And the junior consultant is going to support this. In phase 3 then, which is about quantifying the measures, the consultant again will work quite independently with little oversight from the senior consultant. And that's pretty much it. So here in this project setup, it's actually kind of too much work for the consultant, but it was important for me to point out more like who's going to do what in a real project setup. Of course, the senior consultant and the junior consultant would totally help out the consultant with all these tasks. Here, it's just important to be aware of the level of seniority that goes along best with the specific tasks at hand. In every project, there are also some meta tasks in terms of project management, in terms of client and team development, that in this case, as you can see on this slide, the senior consultant or project manager, whoever's going to lead a project, will be responsible for. So for example, the whole approach is something that the senior consultant or PM is supposed to come up with, leading day-to-day interactions with the client, reviewing deliverables, developing the team, building reusable assets, also something that's important because as a consultancy, you're always interested in reusing project work for other projects to work efficiently. It's something that the senior consultant or PM is going to be in charge of. And then we have the partners who more perform a light touch role in this setup here. So they're going to drive high impact meetings, like for example, the kickoff with the client and also the final presentation, steer course of course as well. Reviewing key deliverables. Yeah, of course. Invoicing, especially important in a restructuring project. You want to do this, let's say, more frequently than in a strategy consulting project. And developing the SC or PM is also going to be the partner's task. So that's already it for today. We finished introducing the case, the first sub-chapter in this first chapter. And next time we will start with setting up the project. Specifically, we'll have a look into the information request, kickoff workshop. Let's see how I spread the videos. So let me know in the comments below if you have any questions, and I'm looking forward to seeing you in the next video.